Hey, it's 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time, to help you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. And one thing you got to check off the list before basically anything matters in your real estate career is getting the license. And, sometimes that's easier said than done, at least if you're not prepared for your exam. You might have heard the ominous statistics that only half the people to take this exam pass it on their first try. And yeah, that's what the state of Florida average is every month. It's anywhere from like 49 to a good month, 51% of the people pass. And then the repeat takers, they usually only average about a 30 to 33% pass rate. And those numbers, we get reports every month on not our students, they don't give us specifically our students, but the state of Florida, that it averages 50% for first time and about 33%, give or take a few percentages here and there. And the reason why so many students end up not passing this exam is they're going in there unprepared. And really the preparation is studying, but you've got to do this studying correctly. There is a wrong way to study for this exam. Not only a wrong way, but also ways that'll waste your time studying for this exam. And that's why a while back, a few years ago now, we came out with what's known as the Pass First Try strategy. And this Pass First Try strategy has been so successful, we've really built upon it more. Because this whole Pass First Try strategy is a series of steps, and it's really a self-reflective strategy, so you could see where it is that you're at in this process to know if you're ready for the exam. Now, we really haven't changed the fundamentals of the Pass First Try strategy much since its inception, but we definitely had changed some of the details, and we're coming up with more and more tools every day to help give you the tools you need depending on what step it is you are in the process. And so that's what we're going to break down today. First, we're just going to go over briefly what you're doing with the Pass First Try strategy, what those 4 steps are to pass your exam on the first try, and then what tools we have for each step of the way depending on where it is that you're at in this process. So this is something that if you're trying to pass your exam, you need to be watching this. If you've got a friend or family member or whoever, somebody that you know that's trying to pass their exam, send them a link to this show because this is essential to being able to pass your exam the first time around. That's what we're talking about today. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Christman. This show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. This is one of the things that we do every single week to help you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. And what we're talking about today is the 2019 update to the Pass First Try strategy. And like I said, we really haven't changed the fundamentals of the Pass First Try strategy. It's still the same 4 steps. But we've expanded on what you can do within these 4 steps to help make yourself ready for the exam, be able to pass that exam on your first try. Now, unfortunately, the Florida Real Estate Commission strictly prohibits us from guaranteeing it is that you'll pass the exam. So this isn't a guarantee, but this is our recommended strategy. And this isn't something that we just recommend. This is something that we see work every single day. And we've had so many students. You can go see videos on our website of past students telling you how our tools will work to prepare you for your exam. But let's get right into the strategy. So again, these 4 steps, which again, this hasn't changed. These are the same 4 steps they've always been. And this is really the biggest thing. If you just understand these 4 steps, you're already going to be in better shape to be able to pass your exam because you're going to know where you're at. This is really a diagnostic to tell you how ready it is that you are for the exam. So step 1 is to learn the information. To learn the info, and that's something that's required by the Florida Real Estate Commission. They require you to complete a FREC-approved pre-licensing course, which you're maybe doing that with us. You might have found some Groupon budget online course, and that's okay if that's where you started. We have a lot of students that come to us for our exam prep tools after they've kind of figured out that you get what you pay for with a lot of these cheaper online courses, or whatever the case may be, wherever it is that you're coming from. Even if you are taking a course from us, I'm confident that we have the best courses that are out there, but learning that information alone isn't going to get you to pass your exam, because this isn't a test on whether you learn the information, it's a test on whether you remember the information and if you could apply it in the context that they're presenting it to you on the exam. But it all starts with learning the information, so that's step number one, and that's just taking your FREC required pre-licensing course. But let's talk about step number two. Reinforce along the way. So step number two is to reinforce along the way. And so what happens is you might be completing your pre-licensing course in a week, you might be completing it in a month, you might be completing it in 2 months, maybe you're really stretching it out and it's taking you like a year or 15 or 16 or 18 months to complete the pre-licensing course, however long it's taking you. Maybe that's as quickly as a week, maybe that's over a year. It depends on what format you're taking it in. If you're on one of those on-demand, self-paced online courses, are you putting in the time or are you stretching this out? So regardless of how long overall it's taking you, because even in that 1 week situation, chances are, even a week later, the stuff that you learned a week ago, especially after you cram in so much information so quickly, isn't going to seem as familiar as that first day when you learned it. And so step two is really all about reinforcing the key points. That's really the main thing, the main takeaway here, is you don't need to know everything from the course. Spoiler alert, you don't need to know everything. But what do you need to know? What is most important? And there's a few things it is that you could use already to just kind of narrow down what's the most important. So one of the things that I would recommend you look at before anything else is the FREC syllabus. And the FREC syllabus, really you just need to know what chapters are what percentage. And we've done videos on this on Ask the Instructor before. All of our exam prep tools include that in there as well, of what percentage each chapter is. But some of the chapters, there's actually 3 chapters in the course that, according to the Florida Real Estate Commission syllabus, are just 1% of the exam each, so a total of 3% across 3 different chapters. So that means on your 100-question multiple choice exam, those little 1% chapters are only going to be 1 question. And they're not worth any more points than any other question on the exam. Every question on the exam is worth 1 point. You either get a point or you don't get a point. So those 3 chapters are just 3 questions on your exam, but there are 3 different chapters that have quite a bit of content in them according to the FREC syllabus, but it's only going to be 1 question. So obviously, those are going to be the lowest down on your priority list because they're just 1 question on the exam. Every chapter has at least 1 question on the exam, and there's 3 chapters that do have 1 question on the exam. Now, you go to the other end of the spectrum, really the top of your list of what it is that you want to study, and there's 2 chapters that make up each 12% of the exam. So these 2 12% chapters together make up 24% of your exam, or just under a quarter of the exam. So you've got 2 chapters, and these chapters are a little bit longer than those 1% chapters, but it's not really proportional for the amount of information in those 1% chapters to the amount of information in those 12% chapters and how much more they're going to test you on from those 12% chapters. So what that means is when you go back to review any of this material and studying this material, start with those units that make up the largest percentages of your exam. The contracts chapter as well as the brokerage activity chapter, those are the 2 12% chapters off of the FREC syllabus. And then there's a bunch of different percentages in between. You've got those 2 chapters, which is what you want to master first and foremost, because that is 24 questions on your exam. But then we've got 9% chapters, we've got 8% chapters, 7% chapters, 6% chapters, 5, 4, 3, all the way down to those 1% chapters. And you want to prioritize these, not in the order it is that you go through it in the course, but in the order of importance. But getting back to reinforcing along the way, so that kind of tells you which chapters are going to be the most important. But the whole along the way portion is what's most important here. Yes, you're reinforcing the important key points, but you're doing that as you go through the course, because even that 1% chapter is going to have 1 question on it. But then you get to Unit 2 in the course, if they're following the order of the FREC syllabus, the licensed law and qualifications for licensure, that one's 6% of the exam. So that one's a large chunk of your exam. Not the biggest, but you definitely want to study Unit 2, Licensed Law and Qualifications for Licensure. But that's right at the beginning of the course it is that you learn that. Even if you're doing in our classroom course, even our most stretched out format of our classroom course, where it's just meeting 2 nights a week for 3 hours a night, that first night, you're typically covering Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And then 2 months later, you come back around to when the exam is. Are you going to remember that stuff that you learned on the first night of class? And that's even if you're in one of these 1-week classes a week later, are you still remembering that stuff that you learned on day 1, or has all the stuff that you've learned in the days after that just pushed that out of your mind? Or if you're doing it online and maybe it's taking you like 6 months to get through the online course because things come up and things aren't going. Maybe you're doing that online course in 2 weeks. Whatever the case may be, you're starting with that information, and there's so much information you're piling onto that, your mind's going to push out this information unless you're reinforcing it along the way. And that's why we recommend our MP3 audio review. In our MP3 audio review, this is the first study tool I'd recommend before anything else because, number one, you got to learn the information, but number two, you've got to make sure you've got those key points down. And this MP3 audio review, it's 5 hours. It condenses the 63-hour course down to 5 hours. And what this does is this now brings it down to just the most important key points. And the thing is here is you want repetition. You could go to just Unit 1 or Unit 2 or Unit 3 or whatever unit. You could pick any one unit in there and just listen to that one unit. And it's not going to have all the details that were in the class, but it sums it up to the most important key points that you want to have repetition. Because if we're talking about 63 hours of information here, that's a little bit difficult to do again and again and again and again. I mean, 63 hours, if you want to go through that just twice, that's 126 hours. So in the same time it would take you that extra 63 hours to repeat the course all over again, the entire course all over again, you could go through this MP3 audio review, which is just about 5 hours. You could go through that MP3 audio review 12 and a half times. 12 and a half times. Now again, this brings it down to those most basic key points. But what it does is it allows you now to have repetition on that information because that's ultimately what you need to remember to be able to pass your exam. Now, the third step in the pass first try strategy, and again, this step hasn't changed. Nothing really so far for the most part has changed in this strategy, and we're going to go over some of the additions that we have that will kind of give you some extra little bit of edge for this. So number 3 is to test your knowledge. So to test your knowledge. Now, this is probably the biggest mistake, and this is something that, we can make this all about things that you shouldn't do, but really ultimately it comes down to what you should do and remembering that. But this is something I see happen so often. It's one of the biggest misconceptions when studying for the exam, and that's using test questions, but using test questions to study off of rather than just using questions for the sake of using them. Now, what do I mean when I'm saying that? What I mean is do not study practice questions. You take away one thing from today's show, it's do not study practice questions. But notice how I use that word study because you do want to use practice questions, but you don't want to study practice questions. Now you can kind of start to see what I'm trying to say here. You want to use those practice questions to see if you know the key points, but you don't want to study the practice questions for a few reasons. Number one, there's 3 wrong answers for every right answer. And you focus too much on that same practice question, you're going to start filling your mind with wrong answers, with 3 times the amount of wrong information compared to the 1 right answer that's there on that question. So that's number 1, why you don't want to study the practice questions, because you'll start remembering the wrong answers. And that's really setting you up for failure if you're just trying to study practice quizzes or study practice exams or anything like that. You do want to use these, but you use this to see if you know about the concept they're asking about. You don't want to use these to see if you're a good guesser, because if you have to guess, if you're not 100% sure on why that answer is the way it is, of what this answer is, automatically give yourself a failure on that question. And I know that's a tough thing to do, to fail yourself, but would you rather fail yourself on a practice question or have the state fail you when you go to take your state exam? Because not only is it, a little bit more of a blow if you don't pass your state exam, but also you've got to pay to retake that state exam. Every time you go to take that state exam, it's going to cost you not only money, but time, frustration, loss of deals because it's just holding you back from getting your real estate license. There's a lot of opportunity costs from not being able to pass that exam. And I've seen so many people before that go to take that exam and they don't pass it on the first try and they just get discouraged and they never go to take that exam again. And their time expires and they never end up getting their real estate license. And they might have been a great real estate professional, but we never know, because they never took that exam again. So what you want to do is you want to be preemptive about this. The exam's going to test you. You just want to simulate this exam environment beforehand, but with a few modifications. Because if you're going to do just a 100-question practice exam like they would give you on the state exam, a 100-question exam, and you go through 100 questions, then you go check your answer later, this is the second mistake that you would make if you're doing these practice questions wrong. Practice questions are extremely powerful, but only if they're used correctly. But one of the other big mistakes is doing a large bank of questions, a large set of questions, and then going to check your work, then going to check your answers, then trying to find out if you got these right or wrong. Because if you go through and you answer 100 questions, which that might not sound like a lot, but after you've taken an hour, 2 hours to go through and answer 100 questions, you're going to have no idea why you got an answer wrong or why you picked that answer. Whereas when you correct yourself in the moment, right there, you're able to see, oh wow, okay, look, this is why this answer is the way it is. So you want instant feedback. If you're doing this in a book, immediately check your answer right away. But ideally, you want to use a book because the textbook that's published by the major textbook publisher, which most schools use, you're going to find, most textbooks actually, and this is in an effort typically to save paper, to make you go back and find the answers. Whatever the reason is, it's irrelevant. But the fact of the matter is, it's just telling you whether the answer is A, B, C, or D, but it doesn't tell you why it's A, B, C, or D. So you're stuck wondering why it is that you got it wrong. And then what happens is you go back to the practice question and you get hung up on the reason why that one is wrong, and you start paying attention to the wrong answers. Then you start memorizing, oh well it must not be this, it must not be this, it must not be this, and you're now filling your mind with false information, which you don't want to do. So you want to check your work right away and ultimately get a detailed response so you could correct that understanding of the key point right then and there. So what we developed, and for our MP3 audio review, for our question simulator, these are proprietary to the Tampa School of Real Estate. For the MP3 audio review, the question simulator, these were designed by us. You go get that MP3 audio review, it's actually going to be my voice on the MP3 audio review. You can actually listen to the first chapter for free on our website at mp3audioreview.com or tampaschool.com or anywhere. You'll be able to find it fairly easily. But this is designed by us based on our knowledge and expertise, not only on just what you need to do to be able to pass, but what information is going to be most important for your exam. So we're not just reselling some crappy MP3 that is read by some boring narrator that isn't going to, even sink into you, that maybe isn't even talking about the important concepts. This one, again, it's ours. We made this, and it took a lot of effort on us to make this. We were developing this MP3 audio review for like 2 years before we finally actually released it. So there's a lot that we've done, and it would have been easy for us to just go record a class lecture, but we had to figure out, okay, where's the fat that we could trim to narrow this down to those most important points. And then with the question simulator, this is another tool designed again with us, and these are both proprietary. You're not going to find these tools anywhere else except from Tampa School of Real Estate. And the question simulator, we've designed this to be the perfect tool for using practice questions for your exam. Everything else I've seen falls short, either because it gives you too much control, and I'll talk about why that's bad, or because it's just not good questions. So not only do we have a great bank of questions that we wrote ourselves here at the Tampa School of Real Estate, our instructors, I contributed a large majority share of those questions to this question simulator, but also the explanations, where you have a Florida certified real estate instructor telling you why you got that question right or wrong and why the answer is the way it is. And right there, you're able to correct your understanding. And we set this up, and this is why you don't want to have the option of doing like of showing or hiding the answers or showing or hiding explanations or anything like that. No, we don't give you that control. We used to use a version of a question like bank thing that is made by a nationwide publisher, and it worked all right. But the problem was, if you could go in there and you could set it up to simulate the exam and not get any answers to the end. But again, that goes against rule number 1, that you want to check your understanding right then and there. So we made it where it only gives you the answer right away, so you know right away why you got that one right or wrong and what understanding it is that you've got to correct. And this is where, again, this pass first try strategy is self-reflective. So you're able to go back into the MP3 auto review. Let's say you go do a quiz on Unit 5 and you get 2 out of 12 questions. Don't just go there and redo that quiz all over again. Go back into the MP3 auto review, listen to that 1, 2, 3 a couple of times, maybe do some other chapters, and then come back and then redo that quiz in the question simulator when it's no longer fresh in your head. So that way, you probably will still remember those questions if you went through every single question in those. And we've got currently over 700 questions in our question simulator. But ultimately, when you put that key point back into the mix now, it helps fill in the gaps here. Because when you get questions wrong here, it means you're missing something in one of these first 2 steps. Either you didn't learn it correctly or you didn't reinforce it. And maybe both of the two. Maybe you didn't learn it correctly and you didn't reinforce it, or maybe it's one or the other. Maybe you did learn it correctly, but you didn't reinforce it, or maybe you reinforced it, but not enough. But this is meant to show you that you need to go back and re-go through this process. And then our 4th step is to be confident and prepared. To be confident and prepared. And this confident and prepared portion, it seems like, oh yeah, I've got that, I'll be confident, but are you? Because most of the people that I talk to that are getting ready to take their exam, that haven't taken their exam yet, they're stressed out about it, they're a little bit anxious. Even the most people that are normally cool as a cucumber, or whatever phrase you want to use for them, they're like, yeah, I'm a little nervous, or I'm panicking, I'm a wreck. And what that does, not only does that distract you from being able to answer the questions correctly, but it also puts you in a situation where you're set up to doubt yourself, to doubt your abilities to perform on this exam. And right off the bat, that statistic that only half the people pass, that automatically throws a cloud over your ability of whether or not you're going to be able to pass this on the first try. And then you worry that, if I don't pass on the first try, I'll never be able to pass it. No, that's not true. Even though repeat test takers average a much lower passing percentage, there is another strategy. It's not the pass first try strategy. It's a test until you pass strategy. And we don't recommend that strategy, but you can ultimately do it usually about 10, 12 times around. You'll eventually be able to pass this exam, but you'll have spent way more than all of our tools combined just in exam testing fees, and you're going to be spending hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of trying to pass that exam. So that's one way to do it, but that's a really frustrating way. It's an expensive way to do it, and it's probably not what you're already interested in. So we won't talk about a take the test until you pass strategy, because that's not recommended. But if you want to be able to pass the exam on the first try around, and anybody that is taking the exam again a second time or a third time, or no matter how many times that you've taken it, if it's not your first time, you're already going to be going into the testing center less stressed out and less anxious, because that whole environment of the testing center is no longer an unknown. You've already been there, you already know what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, maybe even what it tastes like, but you're familiar with that environment, so you're already a little bit more comfortable there. But you might still be anxious, especially if you haven't been studying, or if you haven't been testing your knowledge. Now you're testing your knowledge, you start getting 100% on this, you've listened to the MP3 a few times, and you're feeling good, you're going to start feeling confident and prepared. But there's a few things extra that we've got in this 4th step of being confident and prepared. And number 1, this is the weekend cram, weekend crash, or what we call the weekend prep class. And this is, we always recommend it as the last step in the process. You want to use the MP3 and the question simulator before you come to the weekend prep class, because if you do, you're going to go through that weekend prep class and you're going to feel confident, ready, prepared to take your exam, because it's going to be taking you from like 90% to 100%. of walking out of there saying, yep, I got this, I know this, I'm confident, I'm prepared, I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm not going to pick the answers that sound correct to my common sense. I'm going to pick the answers that sound right according to what I learned from the course. And that's what our weekend prep class is designed to do if you've done these previous steps beforehand. Now, if you haven't done these previous steps beforehand, you're going to sit down through that weekend review and you're just going to feel really overwhelmed because the information moves really fast because we're trying to cram in everything we can into 14 hours. And with the weekend prep class, the difference there than our MP3 that's only like 5 hours, it gives you a lot more explanation of things. It's kind of a hybrid of all three of these steps. You're mainly focused around the key points, but it also does involve some practice quizzes. And then also for when you don't understand really that key point, that's where we get back a little bit to the learning of the information. And it's really intense. And the other part of this too is if you go take the weekend review class and you don't go take your exam right away, that information is just going to start falling out. So that's why you want to have these other tools, the MP3, the question simulator, so you can continuously practice day after day after day after day. But here's some of the big updates that we've got that we have been supplementing this pass first try strategy with. So confident and prepared. If you're somebody who doesn't believe you're a good test taker, I can completely understand that. You know, test taking and test strategy is really a whole set of knowledge in and of itself. And that's why we recently came out with something. And even if you're a good test taker, there's things that are particular to the real estate exam. And that's why we came out what's known as Secrets of the Real Estate Exam. So our Secrets of the Real Estate Exam course is another course that's designed to help make you confident and prepared and ready to pass your exam. And what this does, the test strategy, the secrets of the exam, it's really just that. It's just test strategy. It's just a bunch of tips that we have. I think there's like 20 or 24 different tips that we have in the Secrets of the Real Estate Exam course that break down how it is that you want to approach the questions, how it is that you want to approach the exam, making sure that you're using the pass first try strategy, how to break down questions and be able to eliminate some answer choices that are definitely not the answer choice. And basically just little things like that aren't going to be the thing that takes you from 0 to 75%, but maybe it takes you from a 70 to a 75%. And getting you just those extra couple of points it is that you need to pass. Or maybe you're just a little bit more confident about it because you're the person that says, oh, I'm not a good test taker, but now you've gone through that and okay, now you're confident about that. And then there's another thing, then this one we don't have it released quite yet, but probably if you're watching the recording of this video, it's already out and available. We're just putting the finishing touches on it. It's a course called Master the Math. And Master the Math. So Master the Math is all about mastering the math that you need to pass your exam. Now, when I say that you need to pass your exam, you actually don't need any math ability to be able to pass your exam. There's only 10 questions on the exam that are math questions. But that 10% can make the difference of a 65 and a 75, the difference of passing the exam. And what's good about the math is really predictable. And this is one of the reasons why you don't want to study practice questions, because they could ask them in so many different ways, but math would be an exception to that rule because the math questions, now obviously there's going to be different numbers that they use on the exam. There's an infinite amount of numbers they could choose from for each one of these questions, but what they're asking you to solve, the type of math they're asking you to solve is really predictable. And so many students, going back to being confident and prepared, they're worried about the math. Even though it only is 10% of the exam and you master everything else, you could still get a 90%. But despite that, we still see people that are worried about the math. And when you're worried about any part of this, you're not confident and prepared. You could be 100% on everything except for the math, but that math is just sitting in your head like, oh, I don't understand this math. I don't know this math. I'm going to fail because I don't know the math. And that, again, adds to your stress, your anxiety. And the math, once you understand how to work it, it's actually a really easy 10 points to get. And so that's why we created Master the Math. And Master the Math helps you really take you through each one of the math questions, and it's interactive where you're able to drag and drop the different steps so you know what steps things go through, and really taking you through the process of understanding what you're doing with each of these different types of math questions so you can master the real estate math. There's only about like 15 different types of math questions or 15 different types of topics that are math related that they could ask about. So it's really not a whole lot that you necessarily need to study, but you want to know how to work those steps. And so that's what what our Master the Real Estate Math course, if you're watching this live, that's not released yet, but if you're watching the recording of this, it's probably out and available. If you have questions on any of the steps in this process, call our advisors at 813-333-2676. We would recommend this whole process if you want the total package, but depending on what you've done to study already, depending if you've already taken the exam and how close you are to passing, you might not need this whole recipe. You might only need little bits and pieces of this. So call our advisors. We could do a free diagnostic analysis of what you've done to study and what we would recommend to get you through the passing the exam. We've got great tools that are available that we know work. It's just a question of which tools do you need. You might already have the key points down and memorized, so then maybe you don't need that key point audio review. It might still be important to help make sure you don't forget those key points, but maybe the part that you're missing is applying with practice questions. We've seen that a lot before where people are studying the highlights and they've got those highlights down, but they haven't really had the chance to test themselves, and they're not sure whether or not they're passed because they're waiting for the exam to test them. So maybe that's where you need the question simulator. Or maybe you've got everything except for the math. You feel really good about everything else and you're getting like 69, 70, 71, so you're really close to passing, but you know that you're bombing the math every single time that you take the exam. So that's where master the math is important. Or if you're the person that says, I'm not really a good test taker, that's maybe where you need the secrets of the real estate exam. We created these tools to solve these different problems that we see our students have. I mean, the biggest problem, number one, is making sure that you know the key points and then you could apply them in the question, but that's where we started supplementing these things. And our weekend prep class, that's another thing. We also have that available as a live stream recording. We've got a recording of our weekend prep class, so you could sit through it and watch it as if you're sitting there in the class. You could pause it, rewind it, fast forward it. You've got on-demand access to that for 180 days with that weekend prep class recording. So that is a long session, but what works really well with this, if you sit through and you do this just like you're sitting through the class, there's those practice quizzes right available as a download in there. There's all kinds of diagram handouts that we use in that weekend prep class, and we're actually using that for even future tools to really kind of make this an even better way to prepare for your real estate exam. But that's the pass first try strategy. Again, it's 4 steps. Learn the information, reinforce the information, test that information, and then be confident and prepared. And depending on where it is that you're at, and this is, again, where you want to be honest and self-reflective on this, because depending at where you're at in this strategy could tell you whether you need to go back and relearn the information. Chances are you probably don't, but if that is the case, that's maybe where you do want to look at the weekend prep class as well as all of the other study tools if you're really having to go back to square one of learning the information. Let's say you took one of those budget online courses that you found on Groupon, or that you I won't mention the names of the other companies in there, but you see any online course that's less than $200, I have not found any online course out there that really is worth anything that costs less than $200. So if that's the case, chances are maybe it's not doing the best job of preparing you for the exam. Who knows, maybe you already passed your exam, but in that case you wouldn't be watching this video on how to pass your exam. So call us up. It doesn't matter if you were a past student of us or not, we still make our exam prep tools available to you. You don't have to have taken the pre-licensing course with us. So call us up. We'll help you out and figure out what piece of the puzzle it is that you need. Again, our phone number is 813-333-2676. You can see this whole Pass First Try strategy online at passfirsttry.com. Look, that's all the time we've got for today. So if you like today's show, make sure you hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to us yet on YouTube, make sure you go to tsre.us/YouTube, tsre.us/YouTube, and hit that subscribe button on there, because all of our videos you'll be able to find on YouTube. And we've got so much video. There's so much information that we've got out there that we put out every single day on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe at tsre.us/YouTube. If you got any questions about any of this process, you want to get your license, you need post-licensing or anything at all, give us a call. Our phone number again is 813-333-2676. Look, that's about all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you on Friday for State of Real Estate. Hey, so if you're thinking about starting a real estate career, it could feel a little overwhelming sometimes. Look, that's completely understandable. That's why we're here to help. If you haven't already, check out our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success, or if you don't even know where to begin, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that we can. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Give us a call. We're the Tampa School of Real Estate.
Do you want a career that allows you to be in control? With a career in real estate, you'll get to call the shots. Whether you're looking at starting part-time or want to become the next top agent, a career in real estate makes it possible. Find out what it takes at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Are you thinking about a career in real estate? Hey, I'm John Christman with the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we've helped thousands of people just like you obtain their real estate license. If you're thinking about a career in real estate, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way they can. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.